I'm Marcus Rosati.
And this is Passport Necessary, a podcast dedicated to TCK culture. We are both TCKs and how it's affected us growing up and now our lives as adults. And
Yeah.
today we are going to be talking about homesickness, specifically in regards to the holidays, because
Yeah.
this is about the time when holiday season is starting to pick up. People start traveling home, they start going to see family. But as TCKs, we have very different ways of regarding and viewing home. Uh,
Yeah.
so, Marcus, are there certain things you miss specifically around the holidays?
Well, I think it's particularly difficult because the thing is, obviously, particularly something like Christmas. The time is something. It's a time when you spend a lot of. Well, it's a time when you spend a lot of time with people around your family, essentially. It's so the thing is that you do find it a little bit difficult at times because you realise that not everybody can be in the same place. So the things you used to do as a kid aren't necessarily happening in the same way. Um, my family's kind of spread out across the UK, and then some of them are still in Japan. So the thing is, it's very difficult to get everybody together. So it's one of those things where you'd like everybody to be together, but you can't be because you're separated by huge distances.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose with the whole COVID situation, everyone's getting used to the idea of doing things sort of like over Skype and everything like that. But it still isn't quite the same. And I suppose in a sense, you realise how the distances, you realise how far apart the family is at times.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a little bit difficult.
Yeah. I haven't really had a Christmas with my family. I want to say since 2016,
Mm-hmm.
like starting in 2016, that was when my partner and I started having Christmases together.
Yeah,
Because we didn't celebrate it with his family, we didn't celebrate it with my family. We basically just celebrated with each other.
yeah,
Um, so I mean, that's not a long time in considering like other people who are TCKs. I'm sure in comparison to you, it's not
mm,
as long. But I know that there are definitely things that like around the holiday season that I miss. It's it's a weird feeling because for TCKs, homesickness, at least from the way I view it, it's not really a location specifically,
no,
and that's what makes it hard to define when you're feeling that because it's not a location that you're missing. It's more a general feeling of
yeah.
place.
The atmosphere, especially at time of year, because I mean, particularly being in the UK, everything starts off much earlier to do with the Christmas stuff and the holiday season and all that. So
Oh, definitely
it
here
does
in the
take,
States
yeah,
too.
yeah. So especially from like having lived in Japan and stuff, it personally feels like it takes a little bit out of the season itself because everything is so heavily geared towards marketing it and everything like that. And the thing is, you are reminded a lot more that you're not around your family and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it difficult in a way, actually. It's
Yeah, it's hard because I think a lot of people, especially around the holidays, there's this pressure to see family, and I think
mhm,
for a lot of people, either they can't or they don't have good relationships with their family, so
yeah,
there's this very odd pressure where it's like you should be enjoying your time with them, and it's like, well, I literally can't. So,
yeah,
like, how do you work around and how do you do things? I know one of the big ways for me that I fight some homesickness during the holidays is I have like two set things that I definitely do. I definitely make a big pot of gumbo and jambalaya,
right, yeah,
and that because it's like it's a very homey feeling for me. It's one of my favorite recipes my mom ever makes. That doesn't make any sense. It's one of my favorite recipes that my mom makes,
yeah,
and it was passed down to her. So it has a lot of
mhm,
tradition in it. It makes you feel at home, both for the jambalaya and the gumbo. And then the other thing that I do is for New Year's in Louisiana, there's a tradition of having white rice, cabbage, and black eyed
mhm,
peas because that
okay,
brings you luck into the new year. And
right,
as much as my mom could, she would try and do that in every country we moved to. Because almost every place has cabbage, almost everywhere has rice, and almost everywhere has
Yeah.
some form of bean. Um,
Yeah.
so that was how we did it. We would do on New Year's, like the day of New Year's, we would have that meal at some point to kind of like bring
Hmm.
in luck. And now I've tried to do it so that every year, either on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, I make sure to make that dish because it makes me feel connected to my mom and my dad and my family down in
Yeah.
Louisiana, and it also gives like this sense of continuing a tradition for the
Yeah.
family. Like not something that's like everyone does it because I don't know a ton of people who make like white rice, cabbage, and black eyed peas, but in my family, it definitely had some value. So continuing that makes me feel like I'm tied to something. I think that's a
Yeah.
honestly, I just realized this. I think a big part of homesickness is that it feels like you're not tied to something.
Yeah. Yeah, so you kind of like have to transport a lot of things around with you that you would associate with, I suppose, your own set of traditions, your family's traditions, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, like, certainly for me and my family, there are a lot of times there would be sort of around the Christmas season, you'd have like unusual like meats or something like that, like something special that you would get. So, I mean, particularly one of the ones, maybe I'm slightly making this up, but things like rabbit would
Mm-hmm.
sometimes be a thing that would be done at Christmas times, like things like that, something that you wouldn't normally get.
Yeah, we usually had
Um,
duck. That was the thing in my family
yeah,
around Christmas. That was we had duck. I know a lot of
yeah,
people are like, "Oh, ham." I know ham is like a thing for Christmas in
mhm,
the States and turkey is the thing for
yeah,
Thanksgiving, but in my
yeah,
family, duck was our
yeah.
favorite fowl.
That is, it's a good thing to have. That I mean, in Britain, there's a tradition of eating goose as well. That one happens. So sometimes having duck is kind of a nice thing to do instead of like having the turkey. Because I mean, sometimes the turkey is just too big,
Yeah.
but a duck is actually goes a long way.
Is goose fatty? I've never had goose.
It's very much like duck.
Oh, okay.
I mean, because I mean, it is sort of like a giant duck. I mean, it does taste the same, and it has the fat. Yeah. Um, it's- but it is very similar, but it does have a lot more meat on it. But it's incredibly expensive,
Okay.
comparatively speaking.
Yeah, turkeys
Um,
turkeys here in the States can be very, very expensive,
mm,
especially around Thanksgiving because that's like
yeah,
the time of year that everyone buys turkey. So
yeah,
you can see like the prices like ramp up. And a lot of the times,
yeah,
at least this is the what I see in the States in the Northeast because I live in New York, and a lot of people they always look out to buy these really, really big turkeys. It's all
yeah.
about how big it is. And
Hmm.
I've had turkey once or twice that's been like cooked well, but
Hmm.
it still feels quite dry to me and not as flavorful as I always like think it's going to be. I'm always
Hmm.
like, oh, it's
Yeah,
a big bird, like it should be very yummy, and then I eat it and like this is so boring. All I want are the side dishes. I don't want the
yeah.
turkey.
Well, it's one of those things. It's funny because there's all these different tricks that people have for like cooking stuff, and I found that one of the things that I learned to do from a chef is that basically, particularly with chicken, if you want it to stay moist, what you do is you pull the skin off the top and then just rub butter on the breast underneath, and then put the skin back on.
I have heard
That
of that.
works.
I have heard of
It
that.
works really well. I once
Really?
showed my friend this, and she was going, "Is this a wind up? Are you trying to make me do something I was not supposed to do?" And it's like, no, it genuinely works. It genuinely works. So maybe one day, if I decide to get a turkey all to myself, I might just try that and see if it
Oh
works.
my gosh.
It might do.
I would pay to see you eat a whole turkey.
That would be quite funny, actually. I might do that. Just get a turkey to myself.
Oh my gosh, you would pass out halfway through the turkey.
Oh
It's
yeah,
such a big bird. Anyway, we were talking about homesickness. We got totally
yeah.
distracted by turkeys. Um, what is like something that you always did when you were in Japan? Because I know that like Christmas in the UK, I think, has some slight differences from Christmas in the US. And
Mhm.
I didn't really celebrate Christmas in my family. Not in the way
Mhm.
that people like, they always have the big tree and then they wake up at a certain
Mhm.
time. There's like certain things they do during the day of Christmas. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my family never really did that because a lot of the times we weren't home on Christmas
Mhm.
Day. very
Hmm.
often my parents would take advantage and we would travel somewhere outside of the country that we were living in.
Yeah.
So like we went to Bali, we
Mm.
went to Boracay.
Hmm.
In the Philippines, we traveled very often during the
Yeah.
Christmas, quote unquote, Christmas holiday season. So I don't really have a lot of like traditions regarding that. Do you?
Well, we did the thing of like getting up early on Christmas Day. Normally it would be started off because my dad's kind of maybe a bit traditional in some ways. So is my mum. We used to be sort of like the thing that would go on. You'd start off the day like you'd have like the coffee in the morning. You get up at sort of like at stupid o'clock, like 6 or something like that, and then you would there'd be like proper Christmas carols, so like the real traditional stuff.
Oh, did you have to
Um,
sing them?
no, we didn't
Oh,
sing them.
good.
We listened to them. Yeah, we didn't have to sing them. So, so there are a few that I know quite well as ideas. So there's that sort of stuff, and you don't hear them so much in like because the one thing that really sort of like gets me about the Christmas season is like how early they start playing the Christmas songs in the UK, and you just like by the time it gets to Christmas, you're sick of it.
Dude, it
Um,
is like there's already Christmas stuff up in the US
oh yeah.
halfway through October. And
Oh.
this is a big beef of mine. It drives me crazy. I
Mm,
love Halloween. It is one of my
yeah.
favorite times of the year. And when Christmas starts entering into October, it drives me insane. So it's like Halloween
Yeah.
Halloween has 1 month. 1 month, it's the
Hmm.
month of October. Just give it that 1 month and then you can
Yeah.
start. Go crazy, go nuts. Right after Halloween, I won't complain. But it
Hmm.
starts creeping in and you start seeing all these Christmas decorations and mugs and advertising and I'm like, you have 2 months, like go
Yeah.
away. You're
It doesn't
so
need to be here
early.
yet. Uh, yeah, because I think I was in the shop just before my birthday. My birthday's in September, like late September, and they had like already had mince pies, and I was like, "That's a Christmas thing, and it's September." It's that
Oh,
mad, I don't know. It's just one of those things I miss about being in Japan. Is like it didn't start that early. It gets to December,
yeah,
and that's when you start.
that was when you would see like decorations come up like in Sanomiya or in like any
Yeah.
major like shopping areas. You would start seeing like lights coming out and they would do like fake icicles and like fake
Yeah.
snow and stuff and it was always really pretty. You would
Mm.
see the like Christmas like decorations go up and sales. That was a big thing
Hmm.
too. We'll get more into like Christmas on its own at a later date, but
Yeah.
um like for you, so you would get up early, coffee,
Yeah.
carols. Did you open presents early or was
We
that a
open on the
later in the day
Yeah,
thing?
we did that. We did that in the morning. So the presents were done in the morning. Then there'd be sort of like hiatus uh, before the actual big meal. So the big meal will end up being something like maybe around midday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And by that time, everybody's sort of like had a few drinks. So like the champagne would come out. You'd have all that sort of stuff, and it was just like it. It's basically just overindulged for the entire day, which was quite nice. And then you'd end up watching whatever DVDs you got that year, which was quite nice. You'd watch something that was unusual or different, that's something you hadn't seen before, which is quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it was light-hearted stuff. Well, most of the time it's quite light-hearted, so
Mm-hmm.
it's what you would tend to watch. That's what you tend to do, and it was good. But it's simple because it's like it's all geared up to that one day, and that day is when everything happens. So that's where the homesickness comes from because you're kind of going, that's the thing where the family's together and all that sort of stuff, and that's really how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
It's all that preparation for this one moment. And I can understand like
yeah.
that's something where people who are dealing with a lot of homesickness, especially when they're in a country whose culture is so different than theirs, they're not seeing the
Hmm.
things that are familiar to them. They're not seeing the things that make them feel quote unquote at home. It's very
Hmm.
easy to get overwhelmed by this other culture
Yeah.
because you're not seeing anything you recognize. And that
Hmm.
can feel very isolating. Um,
Yeah.
I remember when I did the big thing for me that I did with my partner, and this is something I think you can do outside of having a relationship or even with friends or even for yourself, is when you are in your new culture. So whether
Hmm.
you're back in your mother country or you're in a new culture as a TCK, I think a really important thing is building new traditions for yourself. Just
Yes,
because,
that is a good point.
yeah, just because something that you're around the holidays, maybe you don't have access to it, maybe it's something that just is not feasible for you to do. Like in certain
Hmm.
countries, you can't get turkey. Okay, so what other
Yeah.
meat could I get that makes me feel like something special is happening so I can celebrate? Like
Hmm.
finding other options so that you can keep traditions or even creating your own. Like,
Mm.
we have a tradition now on Christmas where my partner and I will dress up in a onesie, and we basically spent a onesie is like a like no footies, but it's like a full body uh, outfit, like a
Yeah.
jumpsuit. It's like a jumpsuit,
Yeah.
and we basically dress up in a Christmas onesie, and then we sit around all day. We drink hot cocoa. We watch movies. We'll open presents, and then we usually go for a walk. And like it's
Hmm.
very simple. It's nothing extravagant, nothing crazy, but because we're
Hmm.
both away from our families, it gives us an opportunity to just kind of relax. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
part of our like we're building a tradition for us.
Yeah.
So
That.
I think that's a good way for people who are TCKs, or maybe you're a parent and your kids are TCKs. Like it's really important to give small or build traditions for yourself that kind
Yeah.
of creates a familial bond so that even when you're apart from each other, which happens, you can still try and carry on a little bit of that tradition.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean that's a lot of what the whole season is supposed to be about, isn't it? I mean, it's about being around family, or at least thinking about family and stuff like that. As like for New Year and everything like that. I mean, yeah, you can do things. I mean, I tend to sort of like try and find something unusual to eat at Christmas, just like as I think last year. I mean, what did I do last year? I think it was pheasant last year, just something different, like just cooking pheasant in a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't really roast it, so you have to like slow cook it in wine or something like that, because otherwise it's really tough. So that was a good way of doing it. That was just something different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just you find something find a way of kind of treating yourself, finding a way to sort of like mark the day in some way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and just making sure you get in contact with people. I mean, that's the thing about homesickness, is making sure that you keep in contact with people.
Yeah.
It's important.
I think that's probably one of the most important things I do too on Christmas or any
Hmm.
holiday, really.
Yeah.
Literally any holiday. I try and call my parents and my grandma and my brother. Um, if not that day, then I'll do it the day before or the day after. Because
Yeah.
sometimes, like, day of, if like we have a lot of plans and we're really busy, I'll still like shoot them a message and be like, I'll call you tomorrow, I'll call you the day, but just so that we keep
Hmm.
in touch because so many holidays are centered around family.
Yeah.
And I know that in times right now with COVID, a lot of people aren't able to see their
Yeah.
families. I think it's important to remember that you're still connected even though you're apart. That's a big part of being a TCK. You're still connected
Yeah.
even though you're not physically
Yeah.
together.
I suppose that maybe is one thing that actually kind of at least helps you with being a TCK, is at least with the homesickness, you do recognize what you're missing to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
You value these things a little bit more, and you probably value the memories more as well, because the thing is, you do realize. I mean, a lot of people go, "Oh, it's the same every year," and this and that and the other, and it's like people moan about it. And you kind of go, "Yeah, you can do that if you want," but I mean, there are some other things that are important in it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it does matter to try and sort of like be in contact with people and keep in touch and mark the days, because you never know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
especially now. I mean, with things that you don't know, some people will have lost people this year, which is a really sad thought. But I mean, it's just like, particularly with the homesickness and stuff like that, it does sort of remind you that you you kind of lost something, because it's not going to happen in the same way again.
Yeah.
But at least you haven't lost the people. You
Yeah.
know, there
Yeah.
is that, which is helpful.
Yeah. I think one thing that's kind of a bonus, not a bonus, but like something that's very positive about being a TCK is that we're used to constantly changing. We're used
Hmm.
to being somewhere we don't recognize. We're used to
Yeah.
meeting new people and making the best of it. And I
Hmm.
think with what's going on right now in the world and also around the holidays where tradition is so important, I know a lot of people feel like they're going to be missing out from
Hmm.
seeing their families. I think the biggest thing to do is use the resources that you have to still keep in contact, to still keep those
Yes.
connections strong. And if you are someone who doesn't want to speak to your family, which does happen, if you are
Mhm.
someone who does not have great relationships with them, you still have family in your friends. You still have family in
Yes.
those who are close to you that you care about. So
Yes.
whether they're blood related or like just a kindred spirit, keeping in touch with these people that you value the most during a time of year where it's for a lot of us it's cold, it's darker,
Yeah.
for a lot of us there's snow. Like it is kind of important to remember, like, yes, this is a darker, quote unquote, darker time of the year, but
Hmm.
summer's going to come again. So what can you do
Yeah.
to pass the cold months? What can you do to make these darker times better? This is also
Yeah.
coming from a person who's very positive in general. Like I'm always trying to look on the brighter side of things, and I think it does help with a time of year that can seem very pessimistic.
Yeah. I suppose that's why a lot of these festivals occur when they do, is partly because it is very difficult to get through the dark months. I mean, you know, particularly in more northerly latitudes, it's just you know, the nights are a lot longer. You know, it gets
Mm-hmm.
dark at about 4 in the afternoon, and it doesn't get light until about 8. So you genuinely have long hours of darkness. I mean, it's because the clocks go back in the UK, and it just gets dark
Oh yeah,
really quickly,
yeah,
which is
and when it
really
snows
confusing.
too, when it snows
Mm,
too, it dampens all the light for everything. So like there are little rituals that you can create for yourself and for people who you're close to that it gives you this sense of community and closeness during times that feel very remote.
hmm.
I think one thing that I always liked about the way Japan treated Christmas was that it really did stick within its sphere. So it was December,
Yes.
and that was really all that it did. But it also made it its own because Christmas is not
Hmm.
in any way, shape, or form a Japanese tradition.
No.
They co opted it from the West, from Americans, and from other foreigners. And I think what I like so much about it is that they did what we're talking about, taking things that work within your culture,
Yes.
and like you're like, oh, I like this, I think this is great, I'm going to bring it into my culture, and so adapting
Yeah.
it and tweaking it so that it fits you better. And I always love that. Like a lot of Americans think it's so funny that in Japan, for any American who doesn't know this, I always thought this was great. In Japan, for Christmas, they celebrate by getting KFC, because
Oh
in
yeah.
Japan, KFC is actually considered like this specialty thing, and it's actually really big. And so they'll like go out and order KFC, and they have like a whole marketing thing in Japan in terms of Christmas and getting like KFC chicken.
Yeah. But didn't they like? They would always dress up the guy outside as well, wouldn't they? Oh, what's his name?
The Colonel.
Uh, yeah, it's not Colonel Sanders, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah, that's it. But they would dress him up and everything. I suppose they do it elsewhere, but I mean, they would always have him outside, and I remember they would dress him up. But I mean, I suppose like imagery wise, he does look very similar to Santa Claus, I suppose.
Yeah, the white beard, kind of like
Yeah,
roundish. Yeah, I can see
yeah.
that. He's,
Put a jacket and a hat on him.
yeah, why
Works.
not? He's got white pants. It's fine. It's close enough.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. I remember that being a thing because it's like you don't see that particular marketing thing. I haven't seen it in the UK before, but I don't know.
I don't think they do that in the States, but
No,
I
no.
mean, America has its own like really interesting traditions when it comes to like Christmas and the holidays. Like everywhere, once December hits, that's when it truly is in full swing, and you'll have like
Mhm.
carols playing everywhere. You'll have the same 5 songs on repeat when you go shopping. Shopping becomes huge. There's a lot of pressure on like getting the right gifts and having the perfect day. And I think that's the more toxic side of the
Yeah.
holiday, where it's like the seeking perfection, where it should just be like hang out with your friends and family who you love. That's what's
Mm.
important.
Yeah. I mean, you can have a good time without having to do too much. I think, I mean, just as long as you make a bit of an effort, it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah, it is. It is a pressure thing, and it is the build up. I mean, I think that's the problem is you build it up so much that by the time you get to it, it almost feels like it's not worth
I
it
know.
in a weird way.
No, I do
It's like, is
understand.
this it?
I think for me, what's so funny is that because I wasn't home a lot of the time for Christmas Day, we were
Hmm.
very often in other countries, or if we were at home, we were not in the States, we were in another country. Was
Yeah, yeah,
is that we always kind of like it never felt as like intense and pressured as I think it felt for a lot of my American colleagues. Like for
yeah.
me, it
Hmm.
was just like, okay, we're gonna hang out for another day as we kind of always do, and we'll do something, I guess, as we always do.
Yeah,
Like it felt very like it's kind of another day, but it's just a little bit more special. Um,
yeah.
I know the only tradition that we really kept up, and I think it was kind of at my mom's insistence. We would, we had this tiny tree, not very big, like maybe 2, 3 feet, plastic, that we carried around
Hmm.
to every single move, and we would decorate
Right.
it kind of like in the beginning ish of December. We'd decorate it with a
Hmm.
bunch of like tinsels and crafts and stuff, and then there would suddenly be presents, just all of a sudden they would just be there, and then we on Christmas Day we would do that, and then we would take it down. But even if we left and like we're not in at home for Christmas, we still did the tree as like a little symbol
Yes.
of like, okay, we're doing something special and it's around. But it was always very cute when we would try to like add new decorations to it and stuff. I don't think my brother and I believed in Santa Claus for very long.
I'm not sure how long I did either. I mean, it's such a long time ago. I think I stopped believing a very long time ago.
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
I don't think it was very long for my brother and I, just because, especially moving, whether now I think there's more of a story of Santa, but I think like
Mm.
when I was 7, I was living in South Korea, and there
Oh right,
wasn't
yeah.
really Santa there. So like I don't
No.
think I saw a Santa Claus person. I think my dad dressed up as Santa for the kids for the embassy.
Hmm.
My dad did that in a couple places.
Yeah.
I think definitely by the time I got to Guatemala, I was like, no, it's my parents, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I was very much like, yeah, it's okay, whatever. I'll get you gifts. Like it was
Yeah.
now less of like you have to gift me. Once I realized that it was my parents, I was like, oh, then we should also do the gift
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I learned pretty quick. I must have been like, I want to say 7 or 8.
See, I don't really remember when I learned. I don't know. It could have. I think it must have been quite a long time ago, though. I
Mm-hmm.
think it must have been quite a long time ago if I don't really remember.
Oh, I had another thing I just thought of. One thing that
Yeah.
can also help with homesickness is if you have friends or family that are in a country that you're missing a lot of. So say you like
Oh
grew
yeah.
up in one country and now you're in another country and you're missing the first country a lot. A really wonderful thing that your friends and family can do instead of like getting outrageous like presents and stuff is sending you a care package with items and food or like
Yeah.
things that make you feel a little bit more at home.
Yes.
Those little things can really help. I know that a friend of mine recently sent me a care package of soba from Japan that are
Oh wow.
completely gluten free, and
That's pretty
they
good.
like I had them the other day with my partner, and I instantly had this like rush of like feeling at home and feeling very
Yeah.
comfortable. So that would be another thing I would suggest is if you have friends and family who are in a country that you feel very strong like quote unquote home attachments
Hmm.
to, if it's not too much of a ask, I would say ask them if they're willing to send you a care package with items that
Yeah.
will make you feel a little bit more at home.
That's a really good idea. Actually, that's a really really good idea.
Even if it's not like food, it could be like little items, like little, not even presents, just like things that bring you back to when you were living
Hmm.
there.
Yeah. There'll be a lot of small items and things like that I think everybody will know about and go, oh yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I want.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I need. Just
Mm-hmm.
go, just Yeah, there's probably loads of things that you could do with that, aren't there? Like,
Yeah, because
most of,
every country has a different way of celebrating like the winter holidays and the
mhm.
changing of the year from fall into winter until into spring. So there's
Yeah.
like little things that I think can help that will give you a sense of belonging. That's like we said
Mm.
earlier, homesickness is the almost this feeling of isolation or not being
Hmm.
in a place where you feel comfortable. So having little items that make you feel, again, quote unquote, at home or comfortable are huge to making you kind
Yeah.
of make those homesickness feelings go away.
Yeah. It's the absence of the things that you would normally want to have, isn't it? Really, that really does it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what really does it.
Yeah, my grandma, like when we were living in Japan, we always missed Halloween. That was a
Ah,
thing
yeah.
that we loved, and Halloween's not really big in Japan. So
No.
every year when we were living there, my grandma would send us Halloween candy, like candy corn and like certain hard to find candies that we couldn't get in Japan. And she would send us
Yeah.
decorations, and like sometimes she would like put in like fun little like newspaper clippings that were all Halloween related. So it was like little
Yeah.
things that brought a little bit of our family in the US to us in Japan. It's like
Yeah.
it really does make a difference, I think.
Yeah. It's one of the things I definitely miss is about particularly American sort of like Halloween stuff is pumpkin pie. That's great.
Oh.
It's a brilliant invention. I love pumpkin pie.
You can make pumpkin pie in during the holidays. Why not make pumpkin pie around
Yeah.
Christmas? There's still
That's true.
pumpkins.
That's
Yeah,
true.
you should bake it. Pumpkin pie is really it's that was one of those where I remember when I wasn't in the States, I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. And then when I got here and I tried it, I was like, I'm a
Hmm.
convert. I like pumpkin
Yeah.
pie.
It's a really good invention.
It is. It's so good. Oh
Yeah.
man. Well, I hope you guys find some solace. Winter is just a part of the year that will move forward just like
Hmm.
any other part of the year. So just finding your little moments of light and closeness with people you care about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do your best to enjoy it as much as you can. You know.
Yeah. Especially now. Now's the time to
Yeah.
not take for granted what's going on. Take advantage, full advantage of what you can while you can.
Yes. Yeah. And if you
Awesome.
can't have everything all at the same time, you might as well just make something new up.
There you go. Make your own tradition.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it for homesickness in the holidays. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in our review section, or you can always reach out to me. I'm on Twitter at Layla Gentil. That's LeylaGentil. Also, if you're listening to us for the first time, you don't know what a TCK is, we do talk about it in some of our previous episodes. I think we've already done one interview, and we are
Hmm.
hoping to do some more moving forward. So we're really excited for that. And let us know what you think. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Well, thank you.
Okay. And we'll see you next time.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.